Welcome back. Tonight's stories carry with them quiet chills, strange whispers, and the kind of memories that creep into the dark. Whether you're drifting towards sleep or simply passing the time, let these tales keep you company. Let's start. My daughter says there is a man in the mirror. I accidentally let him out, and it is no man. What do you have there, Cassie? I asked my daughter as she was playing with something in the living room. Oh, it's just a marker I got from my friend. She smiled at me as she responded, and I didn't think anything of it. My daughter is a very sociable 7-year-old with a lot of neighborhood friends. I was about to walk away to continue cooking dinner when I saw a strange marking on Cassie's birthday gift. Cassie, please don't draw on your present. That mirror was an antique your mother and I bought you. I am sorry, Daddy, my friend told me to write it. I am not sure what it is, but I think it's pretty. She smiled once again, disarming my frustration, but I was still confused by what I was looking at. Did one of her friends speak a different language? I looked again at the odd mark on the fancy hand mirror. My wife and I had bought the mirror for Cassie's 7th birthday from an estate sale. It was a very old antique beauty mirror with real silver and sapphires studded into it. We were surprised it was so cheap considering the valuable materials, but we weren't complaining. The marking she left on the hand mirror edge, written just on the corner where the glass met metal, was some odd little rune of sigil. The mark looked like 5 Ys stacked together and did not look like any language I recognized, and I did not know how she knew to draw something like that on her own. I was puzzled, so I decided to ask her. Hey honey, what friend told you to draw this marking? She paused briefly, and her smile shifted to one of unease that concerned me. Well, she started. You probably won't believe me, but it was the mirror man. He told me it's a number from his world. It made more sense now. It was just some imaginary friend, and the marking was just made up. Cassie was very talented at drawing for only being 7, so I didn't put it past her to draw such an intricate design. Oh, did he now? I asked with my own disarming smile and a brief chuckle. She did not smile back and looked a little sad. I knew you wouldn't believe me. He said you wouldn't. I seemed to have upset her, so I decided to play along, or at least in a way that did not seem like it was condescending or poking fun at her friend. Okay, honey, I am sorry. Did the mirror man say what the number was for? She smiled again and said, yes, he said it had to do with his visit, and that the numbers and the mirror will let him visit soon. Okay, well, tell the mirror man that we can play, but no drawing on the mirror. We got you for your birthday. It is very old and very valuable. She loved the mirror and used it all the time despite my initial protest to keep it safe in her room since she could lose it or it could be stolen. She talked to it and played with it, first pretending to do mirror mirror on the wall, but recently it seems her new mirror game is talking to the mirror man and writing whatever comes to her mind. I loved her stories and her creativity, but that look she gave when I doubted her seemed genuine, and it troubled me. The next day I had gotten home from work early and decided to surprise her with pizza. I just got in the door and was bringing it into the kitchen when I heard Cassie talking again in the living room this time. Okay, Gallas, but I don't want to get in trouble. Dad will be mad if I leave those marks on the mirror and on the other ones. There was an odd pause, and I wondered for a fleeting moment if she was actually talking with someone. Who was Gallas? Was that what she had named the mirror man? There was no response, and Cassie came in the kitchen and greeted me warmly, seemingly not reacting to whatever her friend had told her. I thought it was odd, but again, I chalked it up to her imagination. Later that night, I was woken up by a noise from something downstairs. I almost went back to sleep, but I heard it again and resolved to check it out. I was briefly concerned it might be an intruder, but I focused on the sound and heard the light patter of Cassie's footsteps and relaxed. No intruder, but she shouldn't be up. I was being run ragged with my wife being away for the week at a conference, and I had wanted to talk to her more about this behavior with Cassie, but she was too busy to discuss it at any length. When I got downstairs, I saw Cassie in the living room with her marker. She appeared to be drawing on the mirror on the wall in there. I was a little frustrated she had ignored my previous request, and I went into the room to talk with her. She gasped, clearly startled that I was there, almost as if I had broken her from a trance. Oh, Dad, I'm sorry, I really had to though. I want to see my friend and he says I have to draw these on all the mirrors or I won't be able to see him. Once again, I was surprised to see the honest look of concern in her eyes, and I couldn't tell if it was just that she had been caught or if there really was something important she thought she was doing. I don't want to stifle your creativity, honey, but you really can't be drawing on all the mirrors like that, and you really can't be disobeying me or mommy when we say not to do something. I don't know if that marker is permanent or if we will be able to clean those off. I tried to tell her in as amicable a way as possible, but I could tell she was upset by my tone and feeling guilty and sad. I took her back upstairs and tucked her back into bed. I had to use the bathroom on my way back to my room, and when I turned on the light, I let out a frustrated groan. She had left a marking on the mirror up here as well. This time, it had a large-looking Y with 3 smaller ones above it. I remember the marking from yesterday and thought the character looked similar. Whatever it was not random, it had some design or purpose, and did indeed look like a number since the previous character had 5 Ys and this one had 4. I thought perhaps my daughter, despite being so young, may have somehow learned bits of another language, but how? We didn't exactly have the resources on hand here to teach her a new language at 7 years old. The next day while I was at work, I got a call from Cassie's school and found out she had gotten into a fight. I was surprised and concerned. That was not like her. I had to pick her up from school and was told by the principal that a classmate had tried to take her mirror to look at it, and she had gotten very upset and punched them in the face to get it back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That was not like Cassie at all. I tried talking to her in the car back home, but she was sullen and brooding about the event. After reminding her, we don't respond to people taking our things with violence, she interrupted in a frustrated outburst stating, "Gallas is my friend. I did not want to lose him." That name again, Gallas. I figured it must be her made-up name for the mirror man. This was getting old, though. Now it was affecting her school, and violent outbursts like this could get her expelled. I tried talking to her again, and she shut down and barely acknowledged I was talking to her. I didn't know what to do, and I was wishing her mother had been home just then, because what I was doing was not working. After an uncomfortable and silent dinner, I put her to bed and started to get ready to sleep myself when I heard something that sounded like creaking on the stairs. Not again. I went downstairs, and sure enough, Cassie was there holding her mirror in one hand and the marker in the other, writing on the living room mirror again. I was over it at that point. I stormed into the room, startling her again. "Not again, no more of this. You are cleaning these up tomorrow, but first, you are going to bed and you are giving me the mirror." She looked like she was about to cry and spoke. "No, I can't. Not yet. Gallas will be angry." I was getting so tired of this game that I shouted again, took the mirror, and sent her upstairs. She let go of it and didn't fight me over it, pausing briefly to look at me and then at the mirror. She ran upstairs, a faint sob making me feel terrible about what I had done despite my initial feeling of vindication in catching her breaking the rules again. I looked down at the thing and sure enough, there was another marking. This time it looked like 3 very slender Ys. The numbers seemed to be counting down from whatever they started at. I was puzzled at whatever language they were in again and how Cassie would know how to write in it. While considering these things, my eyes were drawn towards the center of the mirror, and I felt an odd sense of vertigo and felt very unnerved all of the sudden. I started to entertain suspicions that there was more to this mirror than we knew at first, and I was wishing I knew more about the people whose estate sale we had bought this from. The next morning, Cassie did not come downstairs for breakfast, and I went up to check on her, and she said she was feeling sick. I checked her temperature, and she did have a low-grade fever, so I let her stay home from school. When I was leaving, Cassie stopped me and looked up at me. "Daddy, can I please have my mirror back?" I was not sure after all of the things that had happened so far with this game, but I thought of something. "All right, I will give you the mirror back, but could you tell me what you are writing on the mirror and why?" She paused, looking uneasy. After an uncomfortable moment, she said, "But Gallas said not to tell anyone about the countdown." She stopped herself and looked scared at what she had just said and stopped talking. "Who is Gallas? Is he the mirror man?" I asked her, but she had resolved to stop talking. I asked again, and she looked down at the floor but nodded her head. I gave up and handed her back the mirror. Whatever this game was really, I couldn't figure it out. That evening I stayed up after putting Cassie to bed, and like clockwork I heard her leave her room and creep down the stairs. I saw her take the marker, and she seemed to move in an odd, almost hypnotic trance. She scrawled the markings on the hand mirror, and then the wall mirror, and when I stepped closer to see her and get her attention, I noticed to my horror her eyes were glazed over, and she looked barely conscious. The marking looked like 2 narrow Ys, and I knew I had to do something. I grabbed Cassie's shoulders and gently shook her, and she snapped out of the trance with a scream like she had just had a night terror. I hugged her and told her it was okay. She kept asking if it was time, and if Galas, the mirror man, was there yet. After some fitful mumbling, she calmed down and I took her back upstairs, and she even fell asleep in my arms on the way up the stairs. Since she was sleeping, I took the mirror, and the handle felt hot and almost burned me. I wondered how it had gotten that way. I took a picture of the symbol, and what I found when looking it up online was very strange. The characters most closely resembled ancient Sumerian numerals. How the hell did she learn to write these? Next, I decided to look up Galas. I didn't find anything initially, but I looked up the term in relation to Sumerian terminology, and what I saw was deeply disturbing. The name Galas or Galu referred to great demons or devils of the ancient Mesopotamian religion that stole victims away to the underworld to be tormented regardless of guilt or innocence. I started thinking about the Sumerian numerals counting down and how Cassie had said the mirror man or Galas would be there when the countdown finished. There was no way this was real. It had to be a joke. Cassie couldn't make believe ancient Sumerian numbers and the literal name of a caste of demonic kidnappers. I was getting legitimately freaked out at that point, and I was so distracted by my research I noticed the time and realized she might be back at it again, and I likely missed her trance like sleepwalking. I checked the bathroom mirror to confirm, and it had 2 large, slender Ys which must represent the number 2. Every other mirror in the house bore this number as well. I did not know what to do. I started looking for Cassie to put her back to bed. Yet to my absolute shock and horror, Cassie was gone. I tore the house up looking for her, pleading for her to come out from wherever she was hiding, but no use. I called the police and gave them her description and the story in case she had run away, sparing the more paranoid and supernatural concern from the situation and hoping if she did run away, they would help find her. I had almost fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, where I had been calling everywhere I could think of to check if anyone had seen her in between going out and searching the neighborhood. I had spent all day searching for her until at about midnight, I heard the front door open slowly and then slam shut. My heart leaped, it must be her. I wheeled around and shouted, "Cassie, you're back?" I was so worried. Yet there was no reply. I couldn't believe it, but all I heard was the squeaking of writing, and then I realized she was writing a single character, which must mean one, on every mirror in another trance. That was last night. I don't know what to do now. My wife's flight was delayed. It is still just us. Cassie is asleep in her room. I took the mirror again, and it sits on the nightstand near my desk where I am writing this. I have an inescapable feeling of dread at the thought of what happens at the end of that countdown. I know whatever this is, it must just be a game. It can't be real. I know she needs help and that this must be a cry for help, but I don't know what to do. My eyes feel heavy suddenly, and I think I need to lay down. Somehow I woke up holding the mirror. The numbers were all there. Cassie is asleep. Somehow she slept through it. But something happened. I was holding the mirror, and the marker, I saw the numbers and brand new and strange signs on the mirrors that were not there before. Worst of all, it was all in my handwriting. As I struggle to make sense of it, I feel the pressure of some unseen force. I take a look into the oddly shifting side of the mirror, and the reflection starts to give way to something else. A face made of pure darkness, with deep red eyes. Suddenly, the mirror cracks under the strain of the force, and then shatters. I jump in surprise, and just as I recover from the shock, I hear a cacophony of breaking glass throughout the house as the pressure is released, and I feel a wave of terror in the pit of my stomach as I smell a rush of fetid air, and the faint sound of an unnatural voice echoing in the distance. The mirror man is real, and whatever he is, I think I just let him out. I need to get Cassie and get out of here now before her friend finds us. The neighborhood well grants wishes, but it does always like you. The neighborhood I reside in now is the nicest place I've ever lived. Beautifully kept with trees so vibrant and skies so clear, you'd think someone had turned up the saturation. Not only that, but this place has one extra perk that trumps them all. No one ever used to use it. From what I can understand, it's a gamble and a very expensive one at that. I also know there's something alive under my neighborhood. No one here has ever seen whatever or whoever it is, but we all know it's there. Superstitions have never had any hold on me. Walking under a ladder, breaking a mirror, and black cats were no more special to me than any other mundane aspect of my life. Sure, I thought the idea of it was cute, a story to inject a little bit of magic into the lives of children, but just like Santa Claus, there was no truth behind them in my eyes. It's the reason I was so surprised when I moved to my new neighborhood, the one with the wishing well behind the old church. I could see it from my window, sitting abandoned across the street. Even as a child, I understood that the purpose of fairy tales was to bring joy, mystery, or some other moral lesson to the listeners. They were a positive thing, so why then did everyone here act like this? Why is it a taboo to even speak about the well? The day I moved in, there was no welcoming party. No friendly neighbors to greet me like in my old town. There was only a note taped to my front door, and even that was blunt: "You will only be warned once. The well is not to be used, stay away from it." It wasn't signed or addressed, but I chalked it up to a crazy neighbor. It didn't take long for me to forget all about it. This suburban town was a lot quieter than the city life I had come from, but I didn't mind it. I kept to myself mostly, always have. Easier that way, especially after things fell apart with my sister. We hadn't spoken in years. The neighbors were friendly, and despite living alone, I never felt lonely. There was nothing out of the ordinary, with the exception of that one small, looming detail. Anytime the well was mentioned, no matter by who, people's smiles would drop like a sinking stone. The subject would immediately be changed, and if it wasn't, people would simply excuse themselves from the conversation. I learned this the hard way when I made the mistake of asking about the well at a barbecue I had been invited to. I may as well have insulted the dead, the way everyone stared. My host pulled me aside to another room. I could hear the chattering continue as soon as I left. They explained to me only that the well was not up for conversation. I asked why, and I was then asked to leave. From that day on, I figured I'd play along. I mean, everyone was friendly enough, and I didn't really care about the well. Why not just let it be? The next week, that same neighbor invited me out for coffee 2 towns over. I found it annoying. I wasn't in the mood to socialize, and they knew I had nothing else going on that day, which made it hard to come up with an excuse without seeming rude. Still, curiosity won out. That's when I finally got some version of the truth anyway. It wasn't much. Vague, cautious, and watered down, but it was more than anyone else had been willing to say. In a hushed voice, they told me people here are afraid of the well. It's older than the neighborhood, older than the church, maybe even older than the town itself. No one maintains it, no one dares, yet it never changes. The bricks never crumble. Plants don't grow over it. There's no mold, no moss. Even the birds won't perch on its edge. I didn't believe a word of it. Ironically, I think my unbelief in the supernatural is what saved me from it at first. It started with a man a few houses down. I didn't know him well, but I'd seen him out on his porch most days, usually with a drink in hand and a tired look in his eyes. One day, he stopped showing up. A neighbor whispered that he'd lost his job. Another said he was about to lose the house too. Then, one night, someone saw him at the well. Drunk, talking to it like it was a priest or a god or an old friend. He tossed a coin down and made a wish. A week later, he won the lottery. $500,000, just like that. No one said it out loud, not at first, but everyone knew. The timing was too perfect. The man who'd been sleeping in his car was now driving a brand new SUV, wearing a gold watch, talking about moving to Florida. It took time, but slowly, people started getting brave. A coin. A wish, a new car in the driveway. A coin. A wish, a promotion no one had seen coming. A coin, a wish. A woman who'd been in hospice walked out of her house 2 weeks later, smiling like nothing had ever been wrong. No one ever admitted it. No one talked about it, but the silence in this neighborhood started to feel different. Not cautious, expectant, like everyone was waiting their turn. The tricky part about gambling is that it is a trick in and of itself, a game of Russian roulette, but the rewards were too sweet to resist. The next wish didn't go as well. I actually knew this one personally. Dale, he lived at the very end of the street. The kind of man who owned 3 cars and made sure you knew about each of them. Loud voice, louder opinions. People saw him that night, dressed too nice for a midnight stroll. Holding a coin the size of a silver dollar, he made a big show of dropping it in. The next morning, his front door was wide open, swinging on its hinges. The inside looked like a tornado had blown through the house. Shattered glass littered the floor, the furniture was overturned and torn, and a trail of dark streaks led from the stairs to the door. They smelled like mud and mildew. No one has seen Dale since. We did, however, find his wedding ring caked in mud on the ground outside. I should mention that, the morning Dale disappeared, there was a 4th car in his driveway, a bright blue Bugatti Veyron. Brand new, clean. Keys still in the ignition, expensive even for someone like him. After Dale, things went quiet again. No more coins, no more wishes. The Bugatti sat in his driveway for a week before it disappeared towed in the middle of the night by someone no one seemed to recognize. No paperwork, no questions. People stopped talking about the well entirely. Conversations grew stiff when it came up, then stopped altogether. Barbecues resumed. Lawns were trimmed. Porch lights flicked on at the usual times. It was as if Dale had never existed. That was the rhythm of this place. A quick flirtation with the forbidden, followed by complete, willful silence. No one warned newcomers anymore. They just waited to see who would get curious first. I never intended for that to be me, but my mind was made for me. I got the call late at night, a drunk driver, an intersection, and my sister. She was alive for now, but in critical condition. I rushed to the hospital to see her, but they wouldn't let me in the room. They gave me the usual spiel. We're doing everything we can. But I saw it in their eyes. She was a goner. The drive home felt unreal. I loved my sister, despite the silence, despite the petty fight. I never stopped. I just never said it. The doctor's words rang in my head again, doing all we can, but I was. There was still one thing I hadn't done. One thing I could still do. The rest of my drive home was spent calculating and justifying what I knew I was going to do next. 5 wishes had been made. Of those, only one ended badly, a 1 in 5 chance to save her. It was past midnight by the time I pulled into the driveway. The neighborhood was still. No wind, no barking dogs, not even the distant hum of cars. Just that heavy kind of silence that feels like it's listening. I stood outside my front door for a long time, keys in hand, staring across the yard. The well sat behind the church, tucked just beyond the fence line. It was barely visible from my house, just a ring of bricks swallowed in shadow. But tonight, I could see it clearly. As if it wanted to be seen, I didn't go inside, I walked. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the air thickened the closer I got. The grass underfoot was damp even though it hadn't rained in days. The church loomed to my right, its windows dark. I half expected to see someone watching me from inside, but there was nothing, just me and the well. I reached into my pocket and found a coin I hadn't remembered putting there. A dull penny. I almost laughed. My sister's life in exchange for this. But it wasn't about the coin. It never was. I stepped forward, cleared my throat. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. I want my sister to live. The coin dropped. There was no sound, no splash. Just an endless silence. I backed away from the well slowly, like with a wild animal, and spent the rest of the night by my phone, waiting for a call. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the curtains cracked just enough to see outside. The well was just a silhouette unmoving, undisturbed. I watched it like a hawk, as if it might change its mind and spit the coin back out. I started writing this sometime around 3 a.m. while I was still waiting for the hospital to call. I didn't know if I'd ever get the call or if something else would happen first. I just needed to get it all down, just in case. The phone finally rang just after 6 a.m. I fumbled it to my ear before the second ring. My heart was already halfway out of my chest. It was the hospital. She was awake, stable, breathing on her own. Responding to questions, the nurse called it a miracle. I didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Just held the phone to my ear and listened to the sound of the universe tipping sideways. I thanked them. I don't remember what else I said. I just know I was smiling when I hung up. And then I looked out the window. Someone is peeking over the wall of the well, looking me right in the eyes. Skin white like paper. Bloated like a waterlogged corpse. Every few minutes it moves a little an inch here, a twitch there, but it never stops staring. It's leaving the well slowly. A hand over the edge, then an arm. Now I can see its mouth, or the beginning of it anyway. It's vertical. It starts at its lips and runs down its throat, a long seam that splits its head in half. I can't see how far it goes. I'm sure I'll find out very soon. I already tried running. When I went to the door, it was there. I saw it through the peephole. Just standing on the other side, gasping, bubbling like something drowning in its own breath. Its skin dripped black water that pooled on my porch. But when I backed away, panicked, and looked out the window again, it was still by the well. My front porch was empty. Unlucky as it is, I made this gamble. My sister gets to live, and that's what's important. I just hope she sees this so she can know I'm sorry. Why we no longer play Subway Maggot. Living in a second-hand jacket, taught to read by a cokehead abbot, I roam unfree. Born in debris, bow down to the Subway Maggot. Rich was feeling it, so we all felt it. All it takes is one guy to get into the groove for the rest of us to follow suit. My legs were already burning. The Subway Maggot chorus is by far the most intense part for the drummer. That's why we'd written in a short break during the solo. As Rich gave way for Cam, I got out of my seat and clapped along with the audience. I felt like a conductor, holding my drumsticks up while Cam was shredding. That's the first time I saw him, the man in the raincoat, in the far back. He was easily 65. I had no idea how he wasn't sweating to death in that outfit. It was so warm up front that some of the security guards were spraying people with water bottles. Basement gigs always have shit ventilation. But there he was, in the far back, completely unfazed. I didn't get a good look at him at first, but he was hard to miss in a pulsating sea of leather jackets, denim, and chains. He wasn't moving, just swaying back and forth with the flow of the crowd. Black locks of hair hanging from the side of his face. Weird. We finished an encore of Waltz of the Apostate and called it a night. Great gig. Lynn was manning the merch booth with Cam while Rich and I crashed backstage. I picked out a couple of beers from the cooler while Cam checked our socials on our laptop. I was halfway through my second brew when I looked up at Rich. He was watching images from the crowd. "You saw the guy in the back?" I asked. "Raincoat guy? Yeah, what was up with that?" Rich frowned. "Man-'s gotta be sweating buckets." "You think he was label?" "Could be label." "Could be?" "Yeah," nodded Rich. "Doubt it, but yeah." I handed him a beer and got a good look of a crowd image on the laptop. Raincoat man stood out like a sore thumb. Hadn't it been for those big eyes, he would have just looked like a shadow. Damn big eyes. Before going on tour, we usually have a month of doing local gigs, just to see what works live and what doesn't. Getting comfortable with the new equipment, that sort of stuff. That first gig was at the basement of the Merry Digs, but the next night we were playing a bigger stage at Fausto's. I got there pretty early. Fausto's actually has a decent menu, so I got myself a lasagna and a Coke. I was expecting a small crowd, maybe 20 people, mostly regulars, but as more and more people started pouring in, we ended up with more than 40. About an hour before we went on stage, the place was packed. Lynn was almost foaming at the mouth as she set up the merch. We got ready, we put our game faces on, and stepped out to the pre-recorded intro notes of Concrete Baby. The sound guy had some trouble adjusting the main mic volume, so we got a nasty feedback loop straight off the bat. Not gonna lie, it just kinda added to our look. Most of the crowd thought it was part of the show, kinda punk. When we got to Subway Maggot, I once again stood up during Cam's solo. The lights were high and dim, and the view of the crowd pulsed with the beat of the song. It was to be a short show, but our supporters showed up in full gear anyway. Gotta love M. But once again, in the back, I saw the man with the raincoat. Among all these people, jumping up and down, there he was. Those big white eyes gleaming in the spotlights, ceaseless and unblinking. I just stared at him, almost losing track of time. I lost my rhythm, causing an awkward break in the song. Rich just played it off, and it turned out pretty well in the end. Still, can't say I didn't lose my cool. I think the guys noticed. We tried to finish on Coca-Cola Cannibal this time, but it was clear that we should stick to Waltz of the Apostate. Got a better clear-cut ending. I made a mental note of it. I stayed a few seconds extra and just watched the man in the raincoat. He just stood there, far in the back, watching us. No applause, no cheers, nothing. Just those big white eyes. As we stepped off stage, Rich and Cam both came up to me. We agreed on putting Waltz of the Apostate back as the finisher, but all in all we were pretty happy. Still, there was something unsaid hanging in the air. Rich gave me a look. Raincoat man was in the back again, he said. Creepy motherfucker. If we're gonna have stalkers, Cam sighed, the least they can do is get some fucking merch. Has he talked to you? Any of you seen him up close? Cam leaned out of the door and peeked into the venue. Fucker's gone, he said. You sure? Hard to miss. We played our Sunday gig at Roland's the next night. It was a bit outside of town, but we still drew a bit of a crowd. Again, the guy in the raincoat showed up. Just after the show ended, Cam tried to push his way through the crowd to talk to him. Before he could get there, I saw the raincoat man slip out through a side door, pushing his way past a guard. Apparently, no one had seen him come in. It was like he just popped up. There was no paid entrance, so he could just have walked in, but no one had seen where he came from. One moment, he was just sort of there. We joked about him being our mascot, but deep down, I was unsettled. I wouldn't want to meet those big white eyes alone in an alleyway. That unblinking, ceaseless stare. Fuck no. We rehearsed most nights of the week, but Cam and I both had day jobs to deal with. It had always been a point of contention with Rich, who thought it was holding us back. To him, it was this one thing holding us from greatness. He wanted us to burn bridges, to commit fully, and to just be non-stop 24/7 heavy metal. Cam and I argued that without our jobs, we wouldn't even have any equipment. Unless we were going all in on a cappella, we needed gear. When Friday night came back around, we were ready. We went back to the basement at Mary Diggs and opened for an out-of-state black metal band. Twice the crowd, easy. Local paper was there to cover it too. This after-party was gonna be insane. We were on first. I kept an eye out for the man in the raincoat, trying to see when he showed up. He wasn't there for the first song. This was a different type of venue. It actually required tickets. If he showed up, someone had to have seen him come in. You don't forget those weird eyes. Unless he was already in here to begin with, or had some kind of secret entrance. It wasn't until we got to Subway Maggot that I saw him. As we got to the first chorus and the crowd started to jump, the raincoat man was this immovable object in the back. His eyes almost shone. Living in a second-hand jacket taught to read by a cokehead Abbott, I got a good look at him. As a spotlight shone directly at him, I could see something. A strange texture on the raincoat. A weird sheen on his face. Not sweat, but something. I roam unfree, born in debris. No mouth, just these two white orbs. Fucker barely even looked human. Was he? Was that even a raincoat? Bow down to the Subway Maggot. This time, I completely dropped the ball. As Cam's solo ended, I just stood there, lost in thought. I stared at the raincoat man, and I just had this feeling that I was seeing something wrong. Like he wasn't what he appeared, like he was real. The rest of our show went off without a hitch, but Rich was pissed. The raincoat man disappeared just after our show, before the main act even got on stage. Not that it mattered to Rich. As far as he was concerned, there was no main act. If you fuck this up, you're out, said Rich. I don't care if it is fucking Jesus in that crowd, you do your fucking part. It's that fucking. I composed my thoughts. Rich tapped his foot and bit his lip. "It's the guy in the coat. I think there's something wrong with him," I continued. "Wrong? What the fuck do you mean, wrong? There's something off about him," I sighed. "Like he's theirs." "Something wrong about him? I don't care," yelled Rich. "I don't fucking care, so get your head in the fucking game." He pushed past me and stormed down the hall. Cam followed suit, giving me an apologetic shrug. I stepped out into the alley to have a smoke. It was some sort of inner yard, surrounded by brick walls, at least 9 feet high. I was alone with 6 trash cans, but I could still feel the music pump from the main hall. I lit a cigarette and checked my socials. The tobacco masked the trash stench pretty well. Rich could get intense during big shows, so smoking was pretty much a requirement. But there was a strange sound. A flutter, like someone opening and closing blinds again and again. A strange clicking noise. A kind of vibration in the air. I looked up. Standing on top of the brick wall, just behind me, was the raincoat man. But this time, I got a better look at him. The streetlights reflected off his head and shoulders. That wasn't just a plastic raincoat, that was something thick. Rubber, maybe, and the eyes. The goddamn eyes, they weren't eyes at all, they were just these. White spots, like the spots on the back of a ladybug. As I watched, I could see parts of it moving. Thin twig-like arms twitching back and forth. What I thought was strands of black hair moved like mandibles. And in the blink of an eye, the raincoat just twitched, folding outwards, then back in, like the wings of a black housefly. He vibrated, making this strange humming noise, exactly like the hum of our loudspeakers. It just burned into my head. As I stared at it, I realized it was staring back. Like an animal ready to pounce, it was just waiting for an excuse. Despite that, I burst into a sprint. I dropped my phone and my cigarettes as I dove back inside, slamming the door behind me. I could hear something bash against the door, then stop. It stayed out there, skittering, scratching on the door. I could hear the hum again, right outside. I stood there for a few minutes, just trying to listen, but I could barely hear my own thoughts over the blast of the music. I didn't even notice I was crying until a teardrop hit the back of my hand. I was in complete shock, and when I realized what could have happened, I just screamed. No one heard it over the music. I tried to talk to the guys about it. I tried to bring it up, to explain it, to make sense of it. But I couldn't. I tried to convince myself that I was misremembering it, but the image was burned into my mind. The hum of the loudspeakers started to give me shivers. It was like they were calling out to it, asking it to come back and finish the job. The next day, as we were setting up at an outdoor stage downtown, I thought about canceling the whole thing. I'd been looking for excuses all day, but Rich needed a win after my screw-up the previous night. Still, if I saw that thing in the audience again, I had no idea what I'd do. That thing was coming for me. It was there for a reason, and something we were doing was causing it to follow us. Maybe it was just the hum of the loudspeakers. I had no idea. That night, as we were about to go on stage, I had cold sweats. My stomach was protesting, and I was just a mess. I couldn't bear the thought of looking out and seeing it, to see it twitch closer and closer. To just go out there and know it was coming for me was just awful. I threw up minutes before we stepped up, and Rich was panicking. "I'm good," I lied. "I got this." We played a decent set. Shades, Blackout Summer, and Coca-Cola Cannibal went just fine, but when we got to Subway Maggot, I got nervous. That was always the time I saw him. When I stood up during that solo, I knew I'd see him. He'd be there, far off in the back, just swaying back and forth. I'd see those white spots, tricking those next to him. He was one of us. Camouflage, a predator. When you've played a song as many times as we have, you know it by heart. You can wake up hungover and beat and still play the damn thing before you even remember your name. That was the only thing keeping me going, the automation. My heart, legs, and arms just feeling the beat. But me, mentally, I was out there in the crowd looking for the raincoat man. And as the chorus ended and Cam took the stage, I stood up once again, conducting the crowd with my drumsticks. There he was. I saw him in the far back, flashing images from the strobe lights, but he wasn't just standing there this time, he was feeding. I saw a dozen little twig-like arms holding a young man. His head was held back as it choked him. 1,000 little hairs were cutting him, drinking his body from 6 different angles. Mandibles biting at his head, trying to take a bite out of his scalp. Even from this distance, I saw blood and strips of flesh coming loose. A pair of panicked green eyes met my gaze. If I dropped the ball before, this was 10 times worse. I threw my drumsticks aside, pushed Cam out of the way, and took the mic from Rich. I pointed at the very back, screaming at the top of my lungs. "Put the lights up. It's killing him. Put the fucking lights up." The audience gasped. Some screamed. But when the spotlights came on, all that was left was a victim lying in the grass, clutching his wounds. Shrieks of a wounded mammal. And somewhere, far above me, I could hear the hum of a loudspeaker. The raincoat man was just gone, scattering to the wind like a fucking cockroach. There was police and an ambulance on site within minutes. The victim just kept screaming, and people didn't know what to do. There were bits of hair and skin all over the grass. People were escorted away, and we were asked a whole bunch of questions. Me in particular. I tried to describe the raincoat man as if I didn't know what it looked like up close, but it was hard. I wasn't giving them much to go on, but I couldn't stand there and say it was an insect. I just couldn't. Instead, I just said I saw blood and what looked like someone dressed in black. Maybe a knife. We skipped playing for the rest of the month. Once we went on tour and got away from it all, things would feel better. For a while, I couldn't even rehearse, as the hum of the loudspeaker would make my heart skip a beat. I'd get panic attacks. I could imagine it listening, just outside. I even stopped listening to music at home, fearing that the vibrations might bring it back. But I'm getting paranoid. Whenever I see someone resembling that silhouette, or whenever I hear a strange sound overhead, it feels like it is coming for me, like it stalks me. And I'm not crazy for saying that. Just last week, Cam told me he got a message from my old number. You know, the one I dropped in the alley. It was simple and short. Play more Subway Maggot, and that's why we no longer play Subway Maggot. Those were tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, hit like, subscribe, and tell me which one will haunt you the most. Until next time, take care and beware of the silence around you.